Thank you everybody for sticking. Manuel, gracias por estar aquí. Thank you for being here. Nice to have you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to my film this Sunday morning. Hola, Jan, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
Todo bien. ¿Y tú? All good. Thank you. Um, Very appropriate to have you in this screen right now. So, thank you for kickstarting our week this Sunday morning with this film, Monumental. Um, there's a gazillion ways that I can imagine having this conversation with you. But let me start with maybe the most obvious questions, which is how do you bring focus to this film? And, like in this sense that the excavation process, the archaeological kind of endeavor that you are doing, I can see this film just kind of building and building and building endlessly forever, piling up for years and years. And you do give us this little gesture, like from 2011, I believe, to 2023 with the, but I wonder, like, at what point in this process, does it become sediment? Because, I mean, there's that quote in the film that says, it's not, I'm paraphrasing, it says, it's not about what the research delivers, I believe, but but the how of the research. But at some point, certain decisions need to be made, and you have to put the I don't know, like the flag somewhere at some point. So if this question makes sense, it's like, when does it come to focus for you in this film?
Well, great. Thanks for your words. And it's very interesting because I'm still thinking uh, how many films I could have done if I didn't put a final decision right in this period. These are the traces and the ruins of this period, because after the pandemic, that's for me, it's the main point, the main moment where I decided I have to finish this right now, because the acceleration of technology, even in pandemic, was faster, and I was still thinking about my footage of 2012 and 2014, and I was living the pandemic, and I was seeing that, oh, there are more new trash everywhere. When I can put the final period. So in pandemic, I think it was the moment in 2020 and also 2021 where I was editing and also seeing the nature and seeing life passing over our screens, and I was still like in love about the Earth ruins. I was seeing all the time the Starlink missions, and I was saying, like, if I put also the ruins of the space, this film will never end. So I was interested in just like mention it, like in a sarcastic way with the song of that I sing. But for me, it was very interesting to, okay, I'm not an archaeologist, but I live as an archaeologist. I have to put like a period of time. So when I was seeing that there was the trash was updating every day, I say, okay, I'm going to work with the past, these 10, 12 years of my trash, and perhaps there are the new ruins too in the future. But for me, it was interesting to concentrate and decided I'm going to work with this period and with these objects and with these ideas, because poetry of Brecht is from 100 years ago, but Zuli Shi was 10 years ago. So for me, it's like an anachronic film, but I decided in pandemic, especially, okay, I have to work with the other things that I have discovered and work at that moment. It was very difficult.
No, no doubt. It's a labyrinth. Uh, I have to say, at least speaking for myself, it's far from. I mean, it is an anachronism, but it's one that lives beyond the anachronism at the same time. Like, I don't think it sits in that space. I think that it actually transcends. So I want to thank you for that, because it gives me a lot of thought for other things. And I mean, we're dealing with this notion of what does it even mean to like archive, right? I mean, and you asked this question in very humorous ways, um, even with like the life of your cat Pendrive. I wonder if it's somewhere around. Yeah, yeah, Pendrive is around. There we are. The star. Cool. I lost my train of thought now. Um,
No, the question
I
is about
was,
archive, you're saying.
thank you. Yeah. I also sang Madonna's Little Prayer last night. I think it burned my throat, so I need a little bit of water. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. So I was asking about the archive, but there is like an architecture when we think about archives, and the way that the film addresses not only the role of, say, for example, like buried media, but in a way like the role of the metropolis, the city, Buenos Aires. I'm guessing is most of it. Like there is something about um, something about the memory of cities that I think also lives in the archive in a way. I mean, seeing like, for example, like the massive gentrification of certain cities and the transformation of certain cities. I think that something that I really loved about the film was the way of how this dynamic is portrayed in a very subtle way. Like it's not something that you that is in your face, but but nonetheless, I think that there is something that is lived in the city. Like I see it, like in the tradition of maybe the diary, the essay, and it's kind of like reflection in cinema. I see your film also in a certain sense giving us like, even if it wasn't Buenos Aires or if it's any other city, like I see like the lived city through the body of the filmmaker. Does this make sense?
Yes, it's very interesting that you say, because one of my most enthusiastic decisions to work with cell phone or handycam is to feel the body of a person that walks and discover the cities. It doesn't matter which it is. Every every big city has the very similar contradictions inside, right? There are so many streets, so many people, and sometimes we can't stop to see an object that perhaps makes me think who built it, or in that wall, what does it say, that wall? Or there is a globe in the sand. Whoa, because there is a globe in the sand. For me, it's like it's an essay for me also to try to stop and share to the viewer what I'm seeing while I walk in these big cities, in these big I don't know, big spaces. I'm very interested in to see the little thing in the big metropolis, because I grew up in Buenos Aires, and perhaps growing up with all information, I don't know, like any big city of the world, you see trash, but also you see that behind that trash and behind that speed of time, there is hidden stories. And for me, it's like, for example, Xuli's story, or it's a hidden story of the world story that it's hidden in our objects, in Buenos Aires, or in Bolivia, or in Peru, or everywhere. For me, traveling gave me the idea that everything is happening at the same time in a lot of spaces, and there are a lot of hidden stories, and hope that my film can expand that idea to find the hidden stories and to stop in the small things.
Yeah. As soon as I asked the question and you started answering, I'm like, yes, it's about this intimate relationship with you and Buenos Aires, that kind of embodied presence. But as soon as I as soon as I asked the question, I was thinking there's also like a cosmics that is happening. Like obviously the role of China and the role, like there's like a net that is being cast and it's only anchored in your experience, but it obviously goes beyond that. So there's that fantastic duality, I think, is lived in the film. I want to leave a lot of space for people to ask questions because we have a lot of very beautiful and smart people in the audience that have just enjoyed your film. But I have one more question that is about and this is something in relation to maybe the family that you inhabit in Buenos Aires. I know that you're part of a collective, Antes Muertos Cine, and that you all collaborate in different capacities in the way that you produce works. Julian Galay also had a film in the festival just a couple of days ago. Tatiana Masu just released a film. I know that you are all collaborating in these works in different capacities. You all have different like ways of entering films, and it might also be a good time to maybe potentially open up the conversation to the more political situation currently in Argentina with the taking away of the funding of a lot of the funds. Within the context of Latin America, we know that Argentina is one of the countries that has like this kind of like spearhead, or at least we see it like that from other parts of Latin America, as far as funding, as far as like the institutions that support cinema. And I also know that Antes Muerto has a credo that also is in relation to that. I'm not saying that everything that happens in Argentina is represented in, say, for example, Antes Muerto. There's like nuance, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, exactly. But maybe you can elaborate this for us, just so that we can maybe potentially have that in the back of our minds as well when we think about how we produce work and how community can be built around the production of work, especially for films such as yours that obviously make use of the amateurness, the mundanity of cinema in a way, like just to wrap this up, I know that I've asked like two or three questions here, but even in thinking about, say, for example, slow cinema, people always talk about Tarkovsky or something, and I cannot help but think of that shot in your film where you're dragging the computer monitor through the mountain. Yeah, like that. I think that's in direct relation to like that type of stuff. But anyway, that's a separate question that maybe we can go into later. Yes.
Yes, thank you very much for saying also. I'm Manuel, but I'm part of a collective. We are 6 people that every day we're working in different films. For example, I'm the editor of other films of the collective. The Julian Galay short that is in Mimesis, I'm the editor, but also I was the producer and the translator. And Tatiana, that she's the editor of my film, also she was the director of photography of Julian's short film. And Julian is the sound designer of Tatiana's feature, and I'm the editor. And Joaquin, that is my producer, is the art director and the art designer of other films. So we're in a collaborative way. A little bit because we want to do it and we want to also distribute our films. Latin America is very difficult to, and Argentina in particular, to distribute your films. There is no funding, so you have to have a lot of ideas and time also. So being 6 people that we do the field work and the producing work outside the computer and outside the shoot, well, it's exhausting, but it's very pleasant also. It's pleasant because you know that you're not alone. I didn't finish this film alone, but it's so hard to live in a country that almost a year from December to now, it's ultra right government, but also they are like behind the ultra right. There is like a anti-memory of the idea of culture and health and education. It's like the mean people of a fiction film. It's very hard to. They are like idiots. They are like very mean people. They want to destroy not only the cinema, because I understand that cinema and film in Argentina is sort of a famous art that has a lot of fundings, but imagine the music, the theater. Uh, I don't know. There are all other arts that already has no funding, and now there is less funding. So they want to destroy our moral. They want to destroy our the desire to have playful ideas and talking about memory. Now there is a censorship very explicit to not to talk about the dictatorship, to not to talk about LGBTQ plus issues. So we're in a strange context where our films are distributed outside. For example, for me, it's amazing to share my film this Sunday with you. And not only is strange to share our ideas that we do during a lot of years, having all the control of editing, nobody hurries up. Talking about slow cinema, we're very slow. I made this film in 12 years because I decided to do it, because I have also people to do it. And also it's a cinema that it's not under pressure about the industry, for example. But if you have to share your ideas here, our films would be the ones that are shown in the news, like saying the Film Institute put, I don't know, we have a very low budget, like $20,000 for this disgusting film that has 30 viewers last month. And we are the films that are being attacked by this government. So we're in a very like I don't know. It's a very sad moment, but also we're very organized. I'm also part of a collective of filmmakers of Buenos Aires that we're like showing films in schools and spaces that are not only cinema or theaters. So there are a lot of people being doing things without budget, but we're doing things because we want to resist. I feel lucky for that, to be in the group of people that is resisting right now in Argentina. But for example, in the next month, on 2 months, there will be the main festival, Class A, Mar del Plata Film Festival, that I think I saw one of your films previous years ago. It's one of the most important festivals in Argentina, and they dismiss all the programming, the directing people. It would be funded by a private funding, so the state will not be there. We're in the film making was like it's a victim right now because Javier Milei, our president, is very annoying with culture. It's like I think that we're in a Cold War, like a post-Cold War, but worst because we know everything. We know with every little detail that our government does. We have it posted online because they say that all the things that they want to destroy. The strange thing is that in our country, the people vote him. It's not like I'm the only one. No, there are a lot of people that was against, but a lot of people that need a change. And in Argentina, it's very complex, not to talk right now, but imagine that it was in the last decades A and B. Well, Javier Milei, it would be the C. So the people vote him, and it's new. There is no memory of the present. The people needs to eat, needs another face, and vote him. But vote him implies a lot of politics that will be harmful for all the worker class and the lower class, of course. So doing films in this context is a sort of privilege, but it's also a light because we can share also other things that we can do with our ideas and against a system that always oppresses us. It's not now, it's like a centuries. So for me, doing these films is sort of a resistance to the anxiety of the the world, because doing a film during 10 years and taking care the hard drive, taking care the Adobe Premiere project, taking care is for me like the motivation to do filming today. And I feel very lucky to be part of a collective that embrace me and embrace, in this case, my way of telling stories.
Thank you, Manuel. Um, I ju- that's all I really want to say. It's very important for us to have this conversation pried open, because I think there's a lot of analogies and a lot of ways where camaraderie can be stretched across the Pan American landscape. But I will open it up to the audience now, because I know that there will be some interesting questions coming your way. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, deeply.
Um, I enjoyed the metaphors that you were touching on in the film, and I thought this kind of archaeology is different from in the past. In the past, you dug up things that people ate with, that they fought with, that they worked with. And then I thought, no, the computer is all of those things. The computer organizes what we eat. It's on the head of a bomb and it guides the bomb. It is a weapon. It, it influences everything, but it's once removed in this very interesting way. And you kind of bring it to life at the end when you're dragging the body of the monitor up there and the guts are coming out of it. And it became very visceral in that moment. But it's an interesting, very interesting to me, the metaphors that you touched on with a sense of humor, but I don't see the trash that as prolifically as you do in Buenos Aires. But thank you for the film. And if you can speak to the metaphor, that would be good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Um, the metaphor, which would be the metaphor of the, you mean of the final scene, which is the metaphor of dragging that monitor?
No, I mean that the computer and the electronics are actually weapons and they influence everything that other archaeology objects did.
Okay. Yes, for me, it's very interesting to understand that, of course, archaeology in the past was mostly analogic, but I think the evolving of science and technology with also different sort of science, because archaeology for me is also science. It's like the main contradictory, I think, of the world. We evolve in technology to also provide new ideas to the science, but in parallel there is an evolving of military technology that provokes that after we can make, I don't know, a better explorations. So for me, it's very important to mention that in the history of technology is also the history of the military technology, right? Because there is I'm very a fan of Aaron Faroki. I don't know if you know him. He's a theorist and filmmaker. And in the essay filmmaking, I remember that he talks about the images of prison and the images of the security cameras of the um, aircraft during the wars. And I remember that in one film of his, on one of his films, he talks about a seagull that was used as an exploration weapon. To they put a camera on the bird, and the bird then came back with um, the aerial images. So for me, it's what like humans use animals to explore the world and using technology to evolve uh, military technologies. And well, now it's all in the computer because we're in 2024 and we can do everything we want. I can be an archaeologist using a computer editing all my footage of 15 years But for me, it's interesting to understand that tools and technology are possible to use it to expand ideas and to use it in a better way, not only to increase military weapons. For me, it's a very complex metaphor, but I think in future films I will continue it because archaeology also it's like a very nostalgic, right? Because to explore the past is very a nostalgic exploration, but I think with the computers I try to problematize or putting in the corner the idea of nostalgia. For me, this sort of archaeology or digital archaeology is more to see the future, but the future is dark right now. I don't know if I answer your question. I'm, I'm exploring ideas while I'm thinking.
Manuel, thank you so much for this piece. It affected me very emotionally, which is an interesting response to an archaeology. I nearly cried when you showed us that Pendra was still alive. It was my first question: is how's Pendra? But I think it's an achievement of the film that it's like my heart is heavy. First affected by space, the subjectivities in the distance, like that you had the people who assembled the machines, and then the people who are disassembling the machines, which I'd never quite encountered before. I thought that was a beautiful way to travel a distance, is between the people making and taking apart. But then in the sense of accumulation of time, the dragging of the monitor like an animal. Actually, I thought of that as an animal on a leash, and the time of the duration of that dragging. Then when you mentioned that it took 11 or 12 years to make it, I just felt the weight of time and how much must have changed while you were making it, and how much has accumulated while you were making it and piling up on you while you were making it. So I guess if I have a question is about how in making the film you coped with, I guess, the accumulation of the time, and decided that I think you maybe already mentioned this, like you just had to decide to stop. But it left me with a sense of heaviness and despair, really, like, because we're running out of time. We're fucking running out of time. So is that a question? I don't know. I just wanted to thank you for the very strong experience.
Well, thank you very much for your commentaries. I don't know if you made a question. I think you were trying to discover also what you are feeling after the screening. And for me, it's the not being there and hearing this also these live thinkings. It's like how I deal also with editing, because when I started the film when I was 20, I finished it when I was 30. So I think it's a sort of end of the adolescence and end of or being naive of how I was seeing the world. So in the editing, of course, there was a lot of possibilities of how working with time, because there was so much footage. Of course, imagine that I film it every time like a digital Jonas Mecha, so I have a lot of gigas. I don't have a analogic film. I have a lot of gigas and gigas of ideas and from videos. And for me, it was the most important thing is also to be sensitive also to the history of technology, because if we think about that ideas, the history of technology is so hard and it's so like of the idea of the objects. So for me, the most difficult thing perhaps was to putting sensitiveness to a cell phone, for example. And for me, the distance between the worker of Peru and the worker of China and me is the being sensible to the history of labor and the history of poetry. Why can't a poet be a worker? Why can't a poet be everything in the world? For me, I have to say that I consider myself a poet because in the previous years, while I was doing the film, I published 2 poetry books and 7 albums of music. So I wrote a lot, and I think from 20 to 30, all that time that you are saying that you feel accumulated, I have a lot of ideas that I don't say in the film, but I think it's in that network, in that web of all workers unite, and all poetry is united in every continent. And I think for me, the mystery that I found editing the film was that how to put the history of time and the history of technology and the sensitiveness, talking about technology and trash. For me, that was the main discover. And when I discover it, I say I have the film. For me, the link between all workers, like a ghost haunting the world, for me it was like the editing has to feel this. I think that editing is also a sensible work. Not only I'm not a machine that I put an image. I know that you don't think that, but sometimes for me, in the secrets of editing, we have the possibility in the documentary to share that impossible things that you can say, but the poetry can do it. So I decided to, in these 5 years more intensively about editing, to remove my thoughts and let the space to poetry to feel that time and to open the possibility of the viewer to connect it from their heart. So thank you for your comment. I think it's very nice.
Mil gracias, Manuel. We've run out of time, but I encourage everybody to please share the fact that the film is available in the virtual festival for another week after this, so anybody can go look it. Also, Julián Galay's short film that's also part of the festival, part of the Antes Muertos Cine as well. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Manuel. Thank you for taking time out of your day for this. It's been beautiful. Yeah. Don't forget to vote for the film for the Audience Award outside. And yes, have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you very much.